Captain Alan Wright rubbed his tired eyes and reached for his third cup of coffee. The night shift at Deep Space Monitoring Station, Horizon, was usually quiet, almost boring. Floating in orbit 240,000 miles from Earth, the station's main purpose was to track asteroids and collect data on solar flares. Alan had been stationed here for 3 years, and most days blended together in comfortable routine. Tonight was different. "Captain, you need to see this," called Susan Clark, the station's communications specialist. Her voice had an edge Alan had never heard before. Alan pushed away from his desk and floated through the low-gravity environment to Susan's workstation. The Earth hung like a blue marble in the viewport behind her, peaceful and unaware. "What am I looking at?" he asked, squinting at the scrolling data on her screen. The quantum receiver picked up something unusual, Susan said, her fingers moving rapidly across the touchscreen. "At first I thought it was equipment failure, but I've run 3 diagnostic checks. The signal is real." Alan frowned. The quantum receiver was experimental technology installed just 6 months ago. It wasn't supposed to pick up anything except the test signal sent from the Earth-based research facility in Nevada. "Show me," he said. Susan pulled up a visualization of the signal pattern. Unlike the orderly test patterns they normally received, this was complex, almost organic in its structure. "Where is it coming from?" Alan asked, feeling the first flutter of unease in his stomach. Susan pointed to a star map on her secondary screen. "That's the thing. It's coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri." Alan felt the coffee cup slip from his fingers. It floated away, small droplets of coffee separating in the low gravity. "That's not possible. The receiver doesn't have that kind of range." "It shouldn't," Susan agreed. "But whatever this is, it's using the same quantum entanglement principles our system is based on, just more advanced." Alan grabbed the floating coffee cup and secured it to the magnetized tabletop. "Wake up, Raj and Elena. We need our best people on this." Within an hour, the 4 of them huddled around the main console in the communications bay. Dr. Raj Patel, the station's science officer, looked more excited than concerned. "This is revolutionary," he kept saying. "Do you understand what this means? Someone else has developed quantum communication technology. We're not alone." Elena Vasquez, the station's computer specialist, was less enthusiastic. "We can't decode it," she said flatly. "The encryption is like nothing I've ever seen. It's not just a different code. It's based on mathematical principles I don't even recognize." "Keep trying," Alan ordered. "And let's keep this between us for now. No communications with Earth until we know what we're dealing with." For 3 days they worked in shifts, catching sleep when they could. Elena built new decryption algorithms, while Raj analyzed the mathematical structure of the transmission. Susan monitored for any new signals, and Alan kept them all focused, bringing food and making sure no one worked themselves to collapse. On the 3rd day, at 2:17 a.m. station time, Elena's decryption program finally broke through. "I've got it," she shouted, startling Raj awake where he'd dozed off in his chair. They gathered around her screen as the alien text transformed into English. At first, the translation was rough, full of gaps and strange syntax. But as the program continued to refine its understanding of the language, the meaning became clear and terrifying. It was a strategic battle plan from something calling itself the Centauri Hegemony, detailing the systematic conquest of Earth. The document outlined invasion corridors, population processing protocols, and resource extraction plans that would leave humanity's homeworld a hollowed shell. "This can't be real," Susan whispered, her face pale in the glow of the monitor. "The nearest star system that could support advanced life is over 4 light-years away." Alan stared at the plans with growing horror. The document included detailed maps of Earth's major cities, military installations, and resource centers. There were population figures, technological assessments, and combat projections. This wasn't a hoax or a misunderstanding. This was a meticulously planned invasion. "Whether it's 4 light-years or 1,000, someone out there has marked us for extinction," Alan said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. He straightened his shoulders. And based on their projected arrival timeline, we've got maybe 3 months before their fleet reaches our solar system. We need to contact Earth, Raj said, already moving toward the emergency communication system. Wait, Elena called, pointing to her screen. There's more here. Detailed specifications of their ships, weapons capabilities, troop numbers. Alan quickly scanned the information. The technology gap was overwhelming. The aliens had faster-than-light travel, energy weapons that could vaporize entire cities, and defensive shields that could withstand nuclear blasts. Send everything, he ordered. Flag at highest priority, direct to Space Command and the UN Security Council. Authentication code Alpha 9 Echo. As Raj transmitted the data, Alan stared out the viewport at the peaceful blue sphere of Earth. 8 billion people living their normal lives, unaware that in just 3 months, an alien armada would arrive with plans to enslave or exterminate them all. What chance do we have against this? Susan asked quietly, coming to stand beside him. Alan didn't answer immediately. The truth was, based on the technological comparison, humanity stood no chance at all. But he'd been a military man for 20 years before joining the space program. He knew that battles weren't always won by superior technology. We have something they might not expect, he finally said. Time to prepare, and the human spirit. We don't give up easily. Back on Earth, Dr. Patricia Summers was pulled from her bed at 3 a.m. by grim-faced government officials. As the world's leading xenolinguist, they needed her expertise immediately. What followed was a whirlwind of classified briefings, panicked global leadership summits, and the realization that Earth was hopelessly outmatched. Within 48 hours, leaders from every major nation convened in an emergency session at the United Nations. The atmosphere was tense, filled with fear and disbelief, but also a growing resolve. In the Pentagon's secure briefing room, General Frank Mendoza pointed to the holograms displaying the schematics of the alien vessels. If these specifications are accurate, he said grimly, a single one of their destroyers could obliterate our entire combined naval forces. Patricia, who had been studying the translated documents non-stop since receiving them, raised her hand. There's something odd. Here, she said. The tactical assessment of Earth is detailed, but their understanding of human psychology seems flawed. Flawed how? Asked the president, eyes tired from days without sleep. Patricia tapped her tablet, sending a section of the document to the main display. Look at their contingency plans, or rather the lack of them. They believe we'll surrender immediately upon seeing their fleet. They have no plans for dealing with resistance. Their entire strategy depends on our immediate capitulation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Are you saying they've never encountered a species that would fight when outmatched? Asked the Secretary of Defense. Exactly, Patricia confirmed. Their psychology is different from ours. In their culture, the demonstration of superior force automatically results in the weaker party submitting. They literally have no concept of a species fighting to the death when defeat is certain. A slow smile spread across the president's face as he leaned forward in his chair. Then maybe that's our advantage. With only 8 weeks before the alien invasion force would reach the solar system, humanity faced an impossible choice: prepare for a war they couldn't win, or try something unprecedented. The Global Defense Council met in a fortified underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. Representatives from every major nation sat around a massive circular table, their faces grim as they reviewed the latest intelligence. Even if we redirect every resource on the planet toward defense, said General Mendoza, pointing to the projection of Earth's military capabilities compared to the alien fleet, we would still be outgunned by a factor of at least 50 to 1. The room fell silent. The gravity of their situation weighed heavily on everyone present. Captain Alan Wright, who had been brought to Earth from Horizon Station as the person who first discovered the threat, stood up from his seat. Though he felt out of place among world leaders and military commanders, he had been thinking about this problem nonstop for days. We can't fight them conventionally, Alan said, his voice steady despite the nervous flutter in his stomach. But we can send them a message they won't expect. The defense secretary frowned. We've already determined that negotiation would be seen as weakness. These aliens expect immediate surrender. I'm not talking about negotiation, Alan replied. I'm talking about a warning, one that plays on the psychological weakness Dr. Summers identified. All eyes turned to Patricia, who nodded slowly. The hegemony has never encountered a species that would fight when defeat is certain. Their entire social structure is built on dominance and submission. So, what do you propose? Asked the president. Alan took a deep breath. We use their own technology against them. The quantum communication system they use to transmit their invasion plans. We've been studying it for weeks now. Dr. Lisa Harris believes we can reverse engineer it to send our own message. Dr. Lisa Harris, a brilliant physicist with wild curly hair and perpetually ink-stained fingers, stood up from her seat near the back of the room. She had been working with captured alien technology since the day the transmission was decoded. It's possible, she confirmed. The principles are similar to what we were already developing, just centuries more advanced. We've made significant progress in understanding how it works. And what would this message say? Asked the Chinese premier skeptically. Patricia moved to the center of the room. It would need to be carefully crafted to have maximum psychological impact. We need to shake their confidence, make them question their assumptions about us. It can't be a plea for mercy, Lisa added firmly. That's exactly what they expect. It needs to be a warning. The plan was audacious. Using the quantum communications, technology reverse-engineered from the intercepted message, Earth would send a single transmission directly to the hegemony's governing council, bypassing the invasion fleet entirely. For the next 2 weeks, Lisa and her team of engineers worked day and night to modify the quantum receiver into a transmitter powerful enough to reach the hegemony's home system. They worked in shifts, catching sleep on cots set up in the corners of the laboratory. Meanwhile, Patricia led a team of linguists, psychologists, and military strategists to craft the perfect message. They analyzed every scrap of information about the hegemony's culture and psychology that could be gleaned from the invasion plans. They value efficiency above all else, Patricia explained during one strategy session. Their invasion plans show no consideration for preserving Earth's cultural artifacts or natural beauty, only its resources. They also seem to have no concept of sacrifice for a greater cause, added Dr. Keith Rivera, a cultural anthropologist. Their battle plans assume that human soldiers will retreat or surrender as soon as they suffer significant casualties. Patricia nodded. We need to show them that humans are different. We need to make them understand that conquering Earth would cost them more than they're willing to pay. The final message was deceptively simple. It contained only 3 components. First, a mathematical proof demonstrating humanity's understanding of quantum physics and our rapid technological advancement curve. This section was designed to show the hegemony that humans were advancing quickly and could potentially catch up to their technology level sooner than expected. Second, a historical record of every war humans had fought against overwhelming odds, with special emphasis on guerrilla tactics, scorched earth policies, and mutually assured destruction doctrines. From Thermopylae to Vietnam, the message highlighted humanity's willingness to fight against impossible odds, to sacrifice themselves for their freedom, and to destroy their own resources rather than let them fall into enemy hands. Third, a declaration. We know you're coming. We will not surrender. We will not be conquered. If you force this war upon us, we will ensure that victory costs you everything. This is your only warning. When the message was complete, the world leaders gathered once more to review it. This is how we present ourselves to another civilization? The German chancellor asked, looking troubled. As violent and self-destructive? We're presenting ourselves as we are, Alan replied. As a species that values freedom above all else. As a people willing to fight for our home. And if they call our bluff? Asked the Russian president. Patricia shook her head. It's not a bluff. That's the point. If they invade, we will fight until the last human being. The vote to send the message was unanimous. On a clear night in June, with the full moon hanging over the New Mexico desert, Lisa Harris activated the modified quantum transmitter. The device hummed with power as it sent humanity's warning across the vast gulfs of space. "Message sent," Lisa announced, her voice quiet in the hushed control room. Now came the waiting. And the preparing. As the days passed, Earth prepared for the worst. Military forces mobilized globally, stockpiling weapons and training for urban warfare. Civilian bunkers were constructed beneath major cities. Food and medical supplies were distributed to strategic locations around the globe. Countries that had been enemies for generations now worked together, sharing resources and technology. If this was to be humanity's last stand, they would face it united. Alan spent his days at the Pentagon, helping coordinate the global defense strategy. But each night, he would visit the communications center, hoping for a response. "Do you really think they'll answer?" Susan asked him one evening. She had been transferred from Horizon Station to help monitor for any new alien transmissions. "I don't know," Alan admitted. "But if they're as logical as their invasion plans suggest, they should at least consider our warning." On the 43rd, day after sending the message as hope was beginning to fade, something unexpected happened. The quantum receiver picked up a new transmission. 3 days after Earth sent its warning, the quantum receiver at the New Mexico facility lit up with an incoming message. Technicians scrambled to alert the proper authorities, and within hours, the entire Global Defense Council had assembled in the underground command center. Alan paced nervously at the back of the room as Patricia and her team worked to decode the alien response. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. World leaders whispered among themselves, their faces showing a mix of hope and fear. "Got it," Patricia announced finally, her fingers flying across her keyboard. "The translation is coming through now." The large screen at the front of the room flickered and then displayed a simple message in English. Message received. Invasion postponed pending further assessment. Request diplomatic contact. The room erupted in confused celebration. Military officers hugged each other. Politicians who had been bitter enemies just weeks before shook hands and laughed with relief. Alan felt a weight lift from his shoulders, but a small voice in the back of his mind remained cautious. "Silence, please," the president called out, raising his hands. When the room quieted, he turned to Patricia. "What exactly does this mean? Are they calling off the invasion entirely?" Patricia reread the message carefully. "They're not saying they've abandoned their plans, only that they're postponing them to reassess, and they want to talk to us. This could be a trick," General Mendoza warned, voicing Alan's own concerns. "A way to lower our guard before they attack." "Or it could be genuine," countered the British Prime Minister. "Our message clearly caught them by surprise. Perhaps they're rethinking the wisdom of attacking us." The debate continued for hours. Some argued for rejecting the diplomatic overture, seeing it as a trap. Others insisted this was humanity's only chance to avoid destruction. In the end, they reached a compromise. "We'll agree to diplomatic contact," the president decided, "but on our terms. The meeting will take place on neutral ground, the moon, and we'll continue our defense preparations in case this is indeed a trick." Earth's response was carefully worded, agreeing to the diplomatic meeting while subtly reinforcing the warning of their first message. 7 days later, sensors detected a small spacecraft entering the solar system. Unlike the massive warships described in the invasion plans, this vessel was barely larger than Earth's own orbital shuttles. The alien ship transmitted continuously as it approached, sending mathematical sequences that matched those in Earth's message, a sign of peaceful intent. It entered lunar orbit exactly where instructed and powered down all but its life support systems. Earth sent its own shuttle to the moon, carrying a small delegation. Eric Daniels, a seasoned diplomat with experience in the world's most dangerous conflict zones, led the team. Patricia Summers joined as translator and cultural expert, while Alan Wright was included because of his first-hand knowledge of the original transmission. A small security team accompanied them, though all knew that weapons would be useless if the aliens truly meant harm. The meeting took place in a temporary habitat constructed on the lunar surface. Through the habitat's windows, the Earth hung, in the black sky, a fragile blue marble that everyone present was fighting to protect. When the airlock opened and the alien delegate entered, even the most prepared among the humans gasped. Ambassador Vex stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent, blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Forearms extended from a torso that tapered to a narrow waist, and the being's head featured 6 small eyes arranged in a circle around what appeared to be breathing slits rather than a nose. After an awkward moment of silence, the alien raised one hand in what appeared to be a greeting gesture. "I speak for the Centauri hegemony," it said through a small device at its neck, which translated its clicks and whistles into surprisingly natural-sounding English. "I am Ambassador Vex." Eric stepped forward. "I am Eric Daniels, representing the United Nations of Earth. We welcome you in peace, though we are aware of your previous intentions toward our world." The alien's skin changed color slightly, darkening to a deeper blue, a reaction the humans couldn't interpret. "Yes," Vex said after a moment. "That is why I am here. Your message was unexpected." The first meeting lasted 4 hours. Vex explained with surprising candor the hegemony's history and motivations. The hegemony has conquered 17 civilizations across this spiral arm, the alien said, displaying a holographic map of the galaxy with glowing points marking their territory. "None have ever threatened us in return. Your warning message was disturbing." "It was meant to be," said Eric calmly. "We meant every word." "Yes," Vex replied, its multifaceted eyes blinking rapidly in what Patricia later identified as a sign of agitation. "Our tacticians analyzed your historical records. The concepts of guerrilla warfare and mutually assured destruction are unknown in our experience. The hegemony has always achieved swift capitulation through superior force." "That's not how humans work," Eric said simply. What followed over the next several days was a fascinating cultural exchange. The humans learned that the hegemony had evolved in an environment with few predators and little competition. Their society was built on strict hierarchies where the strong were obeyed without question. The very concept of fighting when defeat was completely foreign to them. "Your species would rather die than submit?" Vex asked during one session, its translator unable to fully convey the confusion in its clicks and whistles. "Not all of us," Patricia interjected, "but enough of us, and we'd make sure to take as many of you with us as possible." Vex fell silent for several moments, its skin cycling through various shades of blue and green. The hegemony's analysis indicated Earth would be a standard acquisition, resources to be harvested, population to be processed. Your world has valuable minerals and a favorable position for our expansion. Alan leaned forward. "And now?" "Now, the cost-benefit analysis has changed," Vex admitted. "The governing council is concerned. Your warning described tactics our military has never encountered. Your historical records show persistence in the face of overwhelming force that seems irrational to us." "It's not irrational," Eric explained. "It's about values. Freedom means more to us than life itself." Over the next week, the discussions continued. The humans shared more of Earth's history, explaining how smaller forces had defeated larger ones throughout their past. They described how humans had developed technology specifically to ensure that any victory against them would be Pyrrhic. Vex, in turn, revealed more about the hegemony. Their empire stretched across 12 star systems, with hundreds of colony worlds. Their technology was indeed centuries beyond Earth's, but they had developed along different lines. Their society prized stability and hierarchy above all else. Innovation happened slowly, managed carefully to prevent disruption of the social order. "Your species progresses rapidly," Vex observed, reviewing the history of human technological development. "From primitive flight to space travel in less than a century. From discovering atomic structure to quantum communications in just 200 years. The hegemony took millennia to make similar advances. We're curious by nature," Patricia explained, "and competitive with each other." On the final day of the initial talks, Vex made an announcement that stunned the human delegation. The Governing Council has reconsidered the invasion of Earth, the alien said formally. Our forces have been recalled for reassignment. The hegemony wishes to propose an alternative arrangement with your world. Eric exchanged glances with his colleagues before responding carefully. What kind of arrangement? One of mutual benefit rather than conquest, Vex replied. The hegemony has never before encountered a species like yours. We find ourselves interested in learning more. As Vex outlined the preliminary proposal, Alan felt a strange mix of relief and pride. Humanity's stubborn refusal to accept defeat, the very trait that had caused so much conflict throughout their history, had just saved them from extinction. 6 months after the initial detection of the invasion plans, Earth found itself in an unexpected position. The skies had not darkened with alien warships. Cities had not been reduced to rubble. Instead, the people of Earth were cautiously entering a new era of interstellar relations. The hegemony's Governing Council had recalled their invasion fleet entirely and proposed a different relationship, an alliance of equals rather than conqueror and conquered. This remarkable turnaround began with Earth's desperate warning, but it had grown into something neither side could have predicted. Alan Wright sat in his new office at the International Space Agency, looking out the window at the busy Geneva street below. After the crisis, he had been offered several prestigious positions, but he chose this one, coordinating Earth's new space exploration initiatives. His desk was covered with diagrams and specifications for ships that would have seemed like science fiction just a year ago. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Susan Clark entered, carrying a tablet. The results from the technology exchange program just came in, she said, handing him the device. The scientists are calling it a breakthrough. Alan scrolled through the report, nodding with satisfaction. Earth's scientists had begun to understand the principles behind the hegemony's faster-than-light travel. In exchange, the aliens were studying human innovations in artificial intelligence and computer design, areas where Earth had taken different development paths. They're scared of us, Lisa Harris had observed during a private briefing with worldy leaders a month earlier. The brilliant physicist had become Earth's chief technology officer for the exchange program. Not just our willingness to fight, but how quickly we're advancing. According to Ambassador Vex, they intercepted our early radio transmissions only a century ago, and in that time we went from primitive flight to quantum communications. It's more than fear, Patricia Summers had countered. As Earth's principal xenologist, she had spent more time with Vex than anyone else. I think we fascinate them. Their society has been stagnant for millennia. They conquered because that's all they knew, but we've shown them something different. Alan believed both. Women were right. The hegemony feared humanity's potential, but they also recognized an opportunity. Their empire had grown powerful through conquest, but it had grown rigid and unchanging. Humans offered new ideas, new perspectives, and a dynamism that the hegemony had lost centuries ago. We have a scheduled call with Vex in 15 minutes, Susan reminded him, breaking into his thoughts. The treaty negotiations are entering their final phase. The formal treaty signing took place 1 year after Alan's fateful discovery of the invasion plans. The ceremony was held in the newly constructed Interspecies Diplomatic Center in New Geneva, a city built specifically for this purpose on previously undeveloped land in East Africa. Representatives from all Earth nations gathered alongside a delegation of 12 hegemony officials. The event was broadcast worldwide, watched by billions of humans who still found it hard to believe that alien beings were now their allies rather than conquerors. Under the treaty's terms, Earth would gain access to interstellar travel technology, allowing humans to begin exploring nearby star systems. In exchange, the hegemony would receive cultural and scientific exchange, particularly in areas where human innovation had outpaced their own. Most significantly, Earth would help the hegemony reform its relationships with its previously conquered worlds. The concept of mutual cooperation rather than domination was revolutionary in hegemony politics, and not all factions embraced it. There would be challenges ahead, perhaps even conflicts, but humanity had earned itself a voice in galactic affairs. President. Catalina Rodriguez, who had led Earth through the crisis, signed the document with a steady hand. Ambassador Vex pressed all four of its hands onto a special pad that recorded its genetic signature, the hegemony equivalent of a signature. Today marks a new chapter not just for Earth, but for all worlds within the hegemony's influence, the president said to the assembled crowd. Together we will build a future based on mutual respect rather than fear. Vex's translator conveyed its response. The hegemony has existed for 12,000 of your years. In all that time we have known only one path to growth. Earth has shown us another way. This treaty is not merely between our worlds, but between our different visions of what civilization can become. After the ceremony, a smaller reception was held for those who had been involved from the beginning. Alan found himself standing next to Vex, watching the mingling of humans and aliens with a sense of wonder. Your fleet admiral asked me an interesting question yesterday, Vex said, its skin shifting to the light blue shade that Patricia had identified as indicating curiosity. What was that? Alan asked. She asked why we warned you instead of simply launching our attack. She said that in your military history, surprise is a valued tactic. Alan considered this. What did you tell her? I said I did not know the answer. Perhaps you could explain? Alan looked out at the Earth, visible through the habitat's large windows. I think it's one of our contradictions. We're capable of tremendous violence, but we'd still rather find a way to coexist if possible. We sent that warning because, despite preparing for war, we were hoping to avoid it. Vex made a series of clicks that the translator didn't convert, the equivalent of thoughtful humming. This is what makes your species so unusual. You prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The hegemony sees such contradiction as inefficient. We are learning it might be valuable. 2 years later, humanity's first interstellar ship, the Unity, prepared for its maiden voyage to Alpha Centauri. Built with hegemony technology but designed with human innovation, it represented the best of both civilizations. Alan, now director of the Interstellar Exploration Division, watched from the control center as the final checks were completed. Susan stood beside him, now his deputy director and, as of 6 months ago, his wife. Nervous? She asked, squeezing his hand. A little, he admitted. We're making history today. Through the viewport they could see Ambassador Vex standing with the human crew members. 3 other hegemony scientists would join this first mission, participating as equals rather than conquerors. Unity, you are cleared for departure, Alan announced over the communication system. As the ship's engines glowed to life, preparing to create the quantum bubble that would carry it faster than light, Alan reflected on how close they had come to extinction. One simple warning, born of desperation, had changed everything. In the decades that followed, humanity's influence spread throughout the region once dominated by the hegemony. The alliance that began with a desperate warning transformed into a new interstellar community, one built on mutual respect rather than domination. The once rigid hierarchy of the hegemony gradually evolved into a more cooperative structure. Some conservative factions resisted, but most recognized the benefits of the new approach. Productivity and innovation increased across all worlds as fear was replaced by collaboration. Other spacefaring civilizations, long hesitant to challenge hegemony rule, emerged from hiding to join this new coalition. Earth, once targeted for conquest, became a central diplomatic hub where diverse species could meet as equals. The quantum transmission that Alan Wright intercepted that fateful night was preserved in the Museum of First Contact in New Geneva, a reminder of how close humanity had come to extinction, and how a single warning had changed everything. As human ships ventured further into the galaxy, they carried with them not weapons of conquest, but messages of cooperation. And though they always hoped for peace, they remained ready for whatever the universe might throw at them next. It was, after all, the human way, a contradiction that had saved their world and transformed an empire.